Jihad has come to America.
Constitutes the most devastating series of terrorist attacks in history.
The only deen Allah accepts is Al-Islam. And whoever seeks any other deen apart from Islam will never be accepted.
Allahu Akbar! And we stand together to win the war against terrorism.
But you too will make your destruction!
It's said that mosques and Islamic centers in the U.S. are actively teaching jihad ideology. According to the AJC's Division of Middle East and International Terrorism, over 80% of mosques in the U.S. have been radicalized by the Wahhabi form of Islam. Preaching anti-American hate speech and raising funds for Hamas are claims made by advocates around the U.S. wishing to shed light on what they claim goes on in many mosques around the country. If this is true, why hasn't the government acted on this potential threat to our nation? With over 1,200 mosques around the country and the number of mosques surging 57% over the last 10 years, how does this impact the future of America? Does the West really face a persistent terrorist threat from al-Qaeda and others who share its anti-Western ideology? Some claim that there's simply intolerance towards those Muslims who claim they just want to practice their religion, and that there's no proof that mosques around America are being controlled by such extremists. Here to discuss this with us tonight is Tom Trento, Director of the Florida Security Council, an organization specializing in international terrorism research. Also with us, Kamal Salim, ex-PLO terrorist and author of Blood of Lambs. And back with us tonight, Walid Shubat, ex-PLO terrorist and author of God's War on Terror. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's live program of Jihad Exposed, where our topic this evening is mosques in America. Quick announcement before we begin. We'll keep you posted as to when we will broadcast part 2 of Peaceful Coexistence Under Sharia with some of our past Muslim panelists. And for all the latest updates on that, go to abnset.com. But for now, so we've seen some examples of controversial mosques in the U.S., such as the Ground Zero Mosque, which, by the way, Fox News just released a report about the developers of the mosque now asking the federal government for $5 million to help fund the project. Then there's the Staten Island example where the Muslim American Society was financing it, who's linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, who is a front for Hamas. Then there was the Sheboygan, Wisconsin controversy. And we also not too long ago found out about a mosque in Orlando, which was raising funds for Hamas. The video, which was released a year after it happened, I'd like us to take a look at a portion of that video in a few minutes here, after which I'd like Tom to take us through what happened. But first, though, Walid, if you would give us a brief overview of what exactly goes on in these mosques that are known to be controlled by so-called radicals.
Well, a good example could be seen on our website, the kind of activities I was involved in myself in those mosques. It was in Chicago. The clips are old, but they show clearly what goes on even today. In those events, you would see even Hamas activists giving praise reports in which they disclose to the community who they murdered, what bus they blew up. They bring leaders from those entities to give those praise reports, raising funds. The youth from schools and madrasas will, from colleges even, campuses, from Muslim student unions will be gathered there to sing songs about Hamas. Recitation verses from the Quran. If you meet the unbelievers, then smite off their necks. People can see these things in the websites. They can see these things happening even on a college campus, not just in the mosques. However, these things are becoming more and more secretive than they used to be because of after 9/11. So they went more and more underground. However, if you look at the Hudson report, 80% of the mosques were founded to have these kind of agendas, curriculum, flyers, brochures, manuals on instructing the youth on jihad and on the establishment of Sharia laws.
So you're saying that these videos that people can find online, they are happening here in the States or they're happening abroad?
They're happening both abroad and in the States, in Western countries. You must understand that some of the activities the Islamists do in mosques are considered illegal in many Muslim countries. Even in Egypt, you have these radical teachers who've been arrested, put in prison. But they find a open season in Western countries. Islamism grew in big portions in Western countries. Hizb al-Tahrir from Palestine began to disseminate its activities in Great Britain. From Great Britain, it began to spread its tentacles into Pakistan and parts of India, and even from the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. How many Americans know that the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood began to put a foothold in this country in the 50s? I mean, Sayyid Qutb, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, he was roaming in Greeley, Colorado. That's the heart of America. He disseminated many of his books and materials commenting about his opinions and views about the West. And basically, they came up with the instruction manual for all terrorists from the Muslim Brotherhood that the destruction of the United States must presume from within. In other words, building mosques, expanding the Islamist movement and Islamist doctrine from within Western countries in order to destroy their house. And that's how they put it in their own words.
Okay, and with that, what I'd like to do as an introduction to tonight's program, I'd like to show you a video. This video shows Imam Mahdi Bray. He's the executive director of the Muslim American Society, and he's essentially raising funds inside of the mosque, inside of a mosque of Central Florida. I think it was in 2009. But let's take a look at that video, and then I'd like to turn it over to Tom, who can help us understand a little more what went on there.
By the media in New York to be a supporter of Hamas. Anybody support this Hamas here? Anybody is a supporter of Hamas here? Anybody is a supporter of Hamas here? We are all supporters of Hamas. Allahu Akbar. Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Anybody supports Hezbollah here?